Hey guys, and welcome back to another Warlords of Draenor video. This time I'm going to be showing you the level 100 talents for the Death Knight. Just before we get into this though, the talents are actually the same for every single spec. So basically, Blood doesn't have any unique talents or anything like that, it's all just this same three. And these talents are actually really interesting in my opinion. I've had a lot of fun testing them out, and I definitely want to, get some PvP experience with them on this, level 100 PvP server. So, first of all, we have Necrotic Plague. Now, this is a disease that deals 250 Shadow Frost damage every 2 seconds for 30 seconds. However, it actually does more than that, because each time that it deals damage, it gains a stack, which means that it does even more damage, and every time it gains a stack, it will infect another enemy within 8 yards. Now, any time that an infected enemy actually tries to attack you, you gain 2 runic power. And of course the thing about this is that it will replace Blood Plague and Frost Fever, so I suppose you do have a little bit less to manage in that regard, and that you don't really have to worry about your Plague and Fever. But yes, Necrotic Plague is actually really cool. And it's applied by anything that would have previously applied any of your other diseases. So if we were to, say, Plague Strike this, you can see Necrotic Plague is on. And the same thing would go on for Howling Blast. So, as you can see there, I'll just step back so we can see the damage ticking. As it does more damage, it gets more stacks, and as it gets more stacks, it does more damage. So it's now at the stage where it's doing like 2,500 damage, so what's that, maybe a third of a Frost Strike? It does actually get to be pretty damaging, it seems really powerful, and the fact that it spreads around so much is really important. Then of course, the resource regeneration doesn't really apply here on a target dummy because it doesn't attack back, but if you were, say, if you were having a bunch of enemies attacking you, it would be great because your runic power regen would be absolutely fantastic. So that's the tanking benefit there. You're getting a lot of your resources back, so that's very good. Then of course for the DPSers we just get our damage. Overall though, it's a really nice talent, and I like how it's designed so that it both has a very good tanking and DPSing sort of side to it. So next we have Defile. Now Defile replaces Death and Decay, and it's basically just a souped up Death and Decay. So what happens is that it puts Defile on the ground every 1 second. If there are any enemies standing in that Defile, it will deal a bit of damage, but then it will also grow in terms of the radius of it and the damage it does by 2.5%. Now the defensive benefit of this is that any enemy standing within Defile will deal 10% less damage to you. So let's go and use Defile. I suppose we should probably just use it in something bigger so we can see it grow a little bit. So there's Defile. And you can see it just, I think, yeah, is that getting a bit bigger? I'm not 100% sure, maybe it's not, I think it is getting, oh yeah, totally is getting bigger. So I suppose it's a pretty cool ability. I don't know why, I just don't really find it particularly interesting. There's something about Necrotic Plague that excites me a little bit more than with Defiles, so that's the situation there. And then finally we have a pretty cool ability, it's Breath of Sindragosa. So this will cost 15 runic power to cast, and then will use 15 runic power per second, and it just lasts until you have no more runic power, and it will continuously do 2,000 Shadow Frost damage every 1 second to enemies within a 12-yard cone in front of you, and it will also affect them with a debuff called the Mark of Sindragosa for 6 seconds. Now, Mark of Sindragosa will cause you to be healed for 5% of any of the spell damage done by those mobs. The only concern here for me is, what if the boss is just hitting you with physical damage? That's not spell damage, therefore is the defensive side of Breath of Sindragosa just not really too important then? I don't know, maybe it just seems to be a little bit kind of, not always useful for tanks. Alright, so here's Breath of Sindragosa. Let's 0 on our bar, so let's go and just regenerate some frost, some runic power, Wait, I was using Frost Strike, not Obliterate. I want to spend runes, I do not want to spend my power. Where's Rune Weapon? There we go. So we've got a whole bunch of runic power now. Let's go and not use Soul Reaper, let's use Breath of Sindragosa. So, as you can see, we start channeling that. The Dragon Head spell effect disappears, rather unfortunately, and you could probably see there, the spell actually lasted longer than the effect because it was still channeling, so they do have some visual work to do in this. Though I think that it is pretty cool from a DPS perspective. I like the idea of just kind of blowing all your runic power and channeling it all away at once. I think that's kind of cool. But overall, it's an interesting talent. They, of course, just need to, spruce it up visually. Overall, though, I'm really happy with the Death Knight talents. I think they're all interesting in their own way. They're all different. and Blizzard seem to have done a very good job. I'm actually happier with these talents on the whole than I have been for any other class, perhaps with the exception of Mage, because I think some of their new spells are awesome. But when I compare this to the talents of my Hunter, well, here we have 3 talents that all seem to be really interesting, whereas on my Hunter I've only got 1. So, good job, Blizzard. Anyway, that's basically it for this video. Please let me know what you think about these talents in the comments, and I'll see you next time.